I'm Scott Kimbler. The Mortgage Note speaks with Talia Ramirez, president of Spectrum Solutions. Ramirez says the company is a national field service provider for property renovations. Ramirez explains why this is a needed service and how Spectrum Solutions fits into the landscape.
So we do preservation and all aspects of preservation. So we do default preservation, meaning a servicer, a government entity has a property that goes into default. They obviously need a field service preservation provider to step in. What do? We secure the property. We go out and maintain the lawns. If there's any emergent issues, let's say the property's flooding, we immediately cure that. Let's say it has a roof leak, we'll tarp the roof, we'll repair the roof. Anything that needs to be done to help a property maintain the property so that it does not fall further into disrepair, and ensure that the lawn is not blight in the neighborhood. We also do single family rental stuff. So if you have a property that is vacant, it's a rental property, we'll do tenant turns. If you have a property that's occupied, we'll do occupied maintenance. So basically anything that needs to be done to a property, we do it.
Understand you've been at this for quite some time. What is your background in this field and how long have you been doing it here?
I've been in the industry for over 20 years. I actually spent a majority of my career in mortgage servicing. So I've worked all aspects of defaults. I started in originations. It was one of those college jobs, right? It was not, I definitely didn't go to college to run a preservation company. I definitely had aspirations to go in a different direction, but fell in love with mortgage, working at Countrywide. Really enjoyed being on the default side, helping, create processes, really got into claims, ran claims for them. Same thing for Bank of America. And then I changed over to specialized loan servicing, where I built their claims department, helped build out their government servicing. So I just kind of learned as I went. I just fell further and further in love with the industry and fell in love with servicing properties and mortgage servicing. And then a few years ago, I actually got involved in property preservation. And I started running our preservation group also, in addition to other things that I had. And, you know, I really, really fell in love with property preservation. It is such an important, critical aspect of the infrastructure of the housing industry. It is so, I don't think people truly understand how vital it is in maintaining property values, but in maintaining safe neighborhoods for the communities that are surrounding these vacant properties. So every property is different. Every property tells a story. Every property makes you think about how you need to react to the situations that may be occurring at that property. So I really, really got interested in it. I actually took over the preservation group. I was able to reduce losses. The company was losing over 200 grand a month. We were missing conveyance deadlines by years. I stepped in, I partnered with our field service providers at the time, and I reduced our curtailments down to less than a grand a month, which was all uncontrollable losses, so it wasn't our fault. And then I reduced our conveyance timelines to where we were making conveyance, over 95% of the time. So it was then that I knew that was what I was meant to do. So I came to Spectrum, and I really jumped in to build processes to align, the groups to better streamline efficiencies in what we were doing so that we could better service our clients. And then I took over as president of the company shortly thereafter and have been the president since May of this year. So it's been a great ride, and I'm truly enjoying being on this side and understanding full circle the mortgage process.
So if you're servicing properties, how do you apply what you learned in the mortgage trade to what you're doing now?
Yeah, my servicing background definitely helps a ton because I know what it's like to be on that side, right? I knew what I wanted from my field service providers. I know the turn times I needed from them, the communication I needed from them, the transparency that is so critical when it comes to doing this business. We make mistakes, things are going to happen. It's all in the way that you handle them. So because I have that experience and understanding what it's like to be on the other side, it has greatly helped me in this role to anticipate what my clients want, to make sure that I build processes that would align with what I know I would have needed when I was on that side. but it also has helped me to understand just how important honesty, integrity, and transparency is in being a vendor. My clients truly appreciate that. I may not always have good news for them, but the fact that I am honest about it and that I remediate the issue, they truly, truly appreciate it. And that's what they value most. So just my experience and being in their shoes, and that's what sets us apart, I believe, from other field service providers is that I do have that recent experience and I have been in our client shoes. So I can anticipate and work with them in a way that I would have wanted my partners to work with me.
So, can you walk me through the process of I have a property that I picked up and want to move or do something with? Can you explain the process sort of step by step, how you and I would benefit each other there?
Yeah, absolutely. So very, very important. You want eyes on the property, right? The minute that you get a property, you want eyes on it, meaning you want the guy in the field at the property to assess the condition. You want to know, is the property secure? Does it need to be secured? Is the property overgrown and creating blight in the community? Is the property being vandalized? Are there broken windows? Is there any squatters in the property, right? You want to know, is it leaking? Is the roof falling apart? Is the property falling apart? Is there a tree laying on the roof? So you want to know that actual condition. And that first visit to the property is so, so critical. So when you get a property into your inventory that you need action on, it is so important that you get it to us as soon as possible so that we can immediately get a vendor out there within the next 24 hours, 48 hours to get eyes on that property. And then once we get that condition report back in from the vendor, we would then speak to you about, hey, this is what the vendor found at the property. These are the issues. Which ones would you like us to remediate? Or maybe you would rather we don't remediate, we just secure the property and keep eyes on it. So it's always our client's decision. However, I do my best to educate on what I think should be done based on what happened. So I make sure to educate my clients, help them to walk them through the process because a lot of times they don't understand this stuff, right? So it's important that they make informed, educated decisions. And then of course that benefits us because that's business coming in to keep us, alive and in the industry and keep us going every single day. So it is definitely a mutually beneficial relationship. But again, it all goes back to that honesty and getting yourself to that property immediately and getting a comprehensive understanding of the condition.
Now, every now and then we do see reports that delinquencies are going up, and that does tend to lead to more of these properties being empty or soon to be empty and then being repurposed. What does it mean for the mortgage industry, but also for what Spectrum does as well?
So it definitely means more inventory and more inventory at one time, right? And it's something that all field services providers are looking at, watching closely, and preparing for. Because, unfortunately, with COVID, this industry was impacted pretty heavily from a vendor standpoint. A lot of the guys who were going out to these properties to do the securings, to do, the dangerous piece of this job, they're no longer in the industry. So that means more properties with fewer vendors. So we're constantly watching that to prepare for it. On top of that, we have a more extreme rural portfolio than we've ever seen. The properties that are in default are not the properties in Metro Houston, right? They're in the middle of Ellisville, Missouri, or the middle of nowhere, Kansas, where vendors have to travel 200-300 miles to get there. So it's important that as an industry, we talk a lot about what's coming, but it's important as an industry that we work together to prepare for it. And then servicers should be preparing for it as well, because I don't think people truly understand the financial impact that happens when properties go into default, not just from when you're not getting your principal and interest payment, right? But from the fees that are continuing to tack on to the property from a preservation standpoint. It's not cheap to preserve these assets. And then you get down to the end of the line and you go to book loss your loan and you realize you've lost $200,000. So preparing for that, getting in front of it, making sure your vendors are ready to go in case a default does come out of nowhere, but it's something that we're going to have to prepare for as an industry.
And how do you go about preparing for that as an industry or even as an individual company?
As an individual company, it's all about hitting the ground. I go out into the field, I talk to vendors on the ground, getting them energized, getting them excited, you know, and not having them look at this as negative thing, but as a positive thing from a, hey, volume's coming. Can you prepare for it? This is exciting thing about what you do. It's about getting out there and interacting with the industry, interacting with the vendors, interacting with your clients, talking to them about it, keeping that conversation at the forefront. This is an important conversation. It's one I just had getting back from Five Star. I moderated a panel about this very thing. And what do we do? And it's also coming together as an industry. I think too much we work in siloed capacities versus working together. Yes, we're competitors. I get that. But at the end of the day, we're all working towards one common goal. And the only way that we thrive and survive is together. So continuing that conversation, talking to, your peers in the industry about how do we move this forward. But we also talked about advocacy, right? As we're not, preservation isn't just a stopgap. We're a critical part of housing infrastructure. And you've got to get the public to see that. You've got to get Congress to see that. You've got to get everyone to see that we're important. So it's really about continuing to keep that conversation at the forefront and not just continuing to do what we've always done and just, talk about it, but don't really act on it.
So, how far is the outreach of Spectrum Solutions? Where's your footprint and your target area, so to speak?
So we are national. So we do service all 50 states and territories. So we do have vendors in every state. Are heavily concentrated a lot of our volume in the South and in the Pacific Northwest. But we do service all areas.
How would you do that? Would you contract with other companies, or are you an extremely large company with a great many contractors? Because that seems like that would be an undertaking to be everywhere all the time, seemingly doing everything.
It is definitely an undertaking. Yeah, we contract. We have a lot of contractors. And we, all our guys in the field are 1099. But we go straight to that guy. We try to work directly with the guy on the ground, a small company in every area, and give them the business. Because we want them to thrive and survive and to make money and feed their families doing this. So we try to work with those guys directly versus going to the bigger groups, the more regional, although we do have that in our vendor network as well. But we really try to help the guy on the ground to keep him and, keep him working and making money.
Okay. Do you have a physical presence in all 50 states, or are you closer to the more populous areas?
So we're actually, our employees are all around the country, but our business location is in Wyoming. So we do have people, not in all 50 states, but we do have people across the United States, yes.
Can you share some examples of how timely preservation improves recovery for an investor or somebody who's getting into investing in a property, but also maintains and improves the health of a neighborhood? Because like you said, some properties are blighted, and that never seems to do neighborhoods very well.
No, it doesn't. And honestly, every property is an example of how important this is. And that all goes down to timely preservation, meaning timely inspections. That first inspection, you go out to a property and you deem it vacant, that starts the clock for your investor, but it also starts the clock for you to be able to act on getting that property fixed if it's if windows are broken or whatever that looks vandalized, getting the overgrowth that may be in the around the surrounding property or in the front yard, in the backyard, getting that mowed, so that property does not cause blight, right? And the faster you get out there and do these inspections, and the faster you get out there and secure properties, and you get the property maintained, the faster that investor can get that property on the market. And then what happens? Reduces their holding costs. In turn, their recovery goes up. when it comes to getting that property preserved, the faster you get that done, the better it looks for the neighborhood, right? It helps increase property values in the neighborhood. It keeps blight from happening. Or in a lot of cases, when these properties are overgrown, it's not only about blight, it's a safety concern. There's snakes in the grass, there's rodents, there's, bees and wasps and all these things that could happen that could actually impact the public safety. So it's very important that you look out not only for that property, but you look out for the neighborhood. So I can't tell you that there's one property that sticks out more than others because that mentality is constantly in my mind with every property that we go out and preserve.
How do you go about educating people that you're even out there? I mean, I have a relative who owns several properties, but I have no idea what he puts into maintaining those properties or what condition they were in when he obtained them. And if I wanted to do what he did, I suppose I could ask him. But if I came across like an inheritance property or something like that, where it was in, various conditions, I might be kind of lost for a little bit. How do you educate people on how to find you, and how would people find you and understand the
Yeah,
benefit to them?
absolutely. So we do try to, like, when we're out in the field, we talk to neighbors, get to know the neighbors in the neighborhood, talk to them, get to know the owners of the properties. And if the owners, let's say you are working for someone private who has investment properties, which a lot of that is the private area, the single family rental, talk to them about, hey, do you have other friends in the business or do you have other people who are thinking about getting into it? Can you give me their information? I'd love to have a conversation with them. So it's just constantly trying to have that conversation. But also it's continuing to educate, like I said, get out there with the public and talk to them, meet people, talk to people at the grocery store. I run into people at the grocery store, and if I hear somebody talking about investment properties, let's talk. So it's just constantly ears open, eyes open, and then talking to people who talk to people who talk to people. A lot of what we do is very much word of mouth, but it's also a lot of Googling. So people will also Google us and we'll get them that way. So making sure that your presence online is very visible so that you come up in the search engines when people are looking for it. But it's definitely about educating and then pushing and passing along the education from the next person to the next person.
And do you find that since that really did cause a great number of economic issues, that your clientele is going up and your property numbers are going up as well? And how would that look?
So volumes from a default perspective have maintained pretty steady. I think there's a lot of government programs that have been implemented when it comes to forbearances, a lot of loss mitigation options, VA coming out with partial claims a couple of times, FHA has their partial claims. So there's just so many loss mitigation options available that people can go for over and over and over again. But I think that the industry is now moving away from that. I think we've gone, what, 5 years now. At this point, I don't think that is any longer it's COVID preventing people from being able to afford their homes. So we're starting to this is probably why we're going to see a turn where you're going to see those loss mitigation options not be as readily available to people any longer, especially if they apply 2 years. I think you have to go 2 years before you can apply again. So that's why I think we're going to see what could be a huge wave in 2026 of defaults headed our way. And what concerns me most about that is these properties are, if somebody couldn't pay their mortgage, they couldn't afford to fix their home either, right? And so these properties are probably not going to be the best. They're going to be dilapidated. They're going to be expensive to preserve and to repair. And it's going to be a decision that, field service providers along with their clients are going to have to make. So it does worry me, the condition of the properties headed our way. But I do believe that it is coming.
And if that increase is coming, what are you guys doing like currently, again, to prepare for this potentially growing number of matters?
Constantly recruiting vendors. We're always, even if I feel like I have too many vendors in an area, give me more, right? Preparing to make sure that we have a healthy network so that when the files do come, we have vendors ready to go. the minute that the property comes into our inventory. So really, as a field service provider, everyone should be focused on getting their network ready to go. In areas where they don't have coverage, working hard to get that coverage so that they are ready when those properties do come into inventory. So really, it's very important about preparing ahead and not, waiting until it hits and then you're caught in the behind.
What makes your job personal to you? What keeps you excited about it?
That's a great question. Honestly, it's the feeling that I get from it. It just makes me feel accomplished. It makes me feel good. I love delivering for my clients. I love delivering for our neighborhoods. And it's that finished product. It's that property you get that is just falling apart. The yard is just 7 feet tall. And you look at this property and go, oh my God, I don't know that we're ever going to get this done. And then you just sit down and you figure it out. And then when you see the beautiful finished product and you know what you've done for your client and you know what you've done for the neighborhood and for the community, it's that for me. I don't like to do things that aren't rewarding in a way that I feel good about it. It makes me happy every day to know that I delivered for someone and that I made someone, I helped someone's bottom line, I helped the community, whatever it is. So it's very personalized to me from just a rewarding factor to know that I am helping others.
We've been speaking with Talia Ramirez, president of Spectrum Solutions. This has been the Mortgage Note Podcast. I'm Scott Kimbler.